What's up, guys? If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. Also, please smash that like button on the video and enjoy the show.
And it's true. My dad, when my dad was in the Army, I remember he's in his 50s. He looks at me one day, he goes, son, he goes, if the Army would take me back today, he goes, I'd go back in a minute, And I couldn't understand that. Like, why would you do that? But now I understand it, right? I wouldn't go back because, hell, that'd be a hell of a pay cut. And more, not only that, my liberty and everything else.
Mercenary business is a booming.
Yeah, and so, but I get it, right? Because as I started out in this program is, the military culture is so different from the civilian culture, man. It's almost hard to explain that, right? The camaraderie, the brotherhood. This is why I said when people talk about racism, I don't know what military they're talking about. Maybe it's I don't know. In combat arms, you're not going to find that, or very little of that, and so it's like the best. It's almost like the best university to go to in the world. In fact, I used to recommend people go in the military all the time. It's like the best college in the world to go to, man. You'll meet the best people, the best friendships. And so you get used to that, and suddenly you're in this other weird world where you're around weird people that lie, embellish, pretend to be who they're not, and it feels very unusual. And so you naturally want to gravitate back to that culture that you grew into, right? But you can't because they won't take you back because you're like me. You're like too old. And so you look for that. You look for something to fill that gap, that emotional gap, And for me, it's, I still like to do scary, dangerous, risky things, but for the right reasons, for good reasons. And so every now and then, I get the phone call, hey, man, would you like to go hunt some terrorists? Oh, yeah. How long? For a couple of weeks? Yeah, I'd be happy to do that, But I need to be back for, this when I get back for a podcast. Oh, okay. Or can I do the podcast downrange? Oh, you can do that down. Okay, cool.
Oh my God.
But no, it's like that, and you never get enough of it because for me personally, I feel like it's part of my DNA. I was raised in that type of culture. As soon as I graduated high school, I went back into that culture. Even after I retired from the military, I got back into the culture anyways. I'm always trying to keep my hand on it a little bit somewhere. I mean, I'm trying to stay in that culture because it grounds me, and it's a familiar place that kind of helps me keep my sanity in an insane world, And so a lot of guys, I think that's what happens. So they either go down the wrong road, drugs, alcohol, other weird stuff, get in trouble, or they go suicidal, or, they just become depressed, or they just fade away. They talk about the days, of glory. A lot of guys are defined by who they were and not who they are today. And by the way, I never go around telling people that, I'm a former Delta Force operator. I don't define myself for that. I define myself as who I am today. That's all that matters. Being a Delta Force operator, being a Green Beret, being all the things I've done in the past were just stepping stones to where I'm at today. What am I today? I'm a businessman. I'm a life coach. I'm a father. I'm a husband. I've got I got a PhD.
Oh, you got a PhD?
Yeah, you know that?
No.
Surprise!
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got a doctorate in alternative medicine, natural health. I got a master's degree in business and organizational security management. I speak several languages. I can go on and on and on. But that's who I am today. Everything else was behind me. I never looked back. I look out the windshield, not through the rearview mirror. And there's a lot more to see to the front that I want to do. And that's That's how I see myself, and so I don't live with regrets. There's been things that have happened to me in the past that were, I wish it never did happen, but they happened, and I don't dwell on them. I don't look back. I don't let it.
You've never struggled with that at all? You never had any battles with PTSD?
Yeah, actually, I had.
Oh, you have?
Yeah, and I don't. I'm not embarrassed to say that because
you shouldn't be.
PTSD is not. My PTSD, I think Joe mentioned it. He talked about like what happened with Mike Donatelli on Discovery Channel, right? Mike died in my arms that night. I was the guy.
That's right. You were there.
Yeah, I was the guy out there, when all that happened by myself. And, things like that, when things like that happen, that that has a pretty profound effect on you. What I suffered from there was survivor's guilt because Mike and I had switched places the very last second, and Mike got on the helicopter instead of me. And when I watched the helicopter crash that morning, 3:30, and I remember running down there by myself, nobody to help me, and when I found everybody, the bodies, it was a pretty gruesome sight. And Mike was the only one to have survived, but barely. And
he survived on the crash. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and I can say that because I've already told that to his parents, his father, right? Because originally his father thought he died instantly, and this might be an interesting story to share with everybody. I think it is. I think it might be important as well. So I'll just kind of give you a little bit of the background. So Mike was a Green Beret Ranger. He was in Delta Forces, operations manager. Not an operator, but it still doesn't matter. He and I had a lot in common. I was a professional boxer. He was a Golden Gloves boxer. We both had, Hispanic wives. We had the same number of kids, same age. There was a lot of similarities between us, and so we're doing this show, Discovery Channel. We're actually all co-producers along with Joe. And then we made that decision that fateful night that we would change positions. I would be on the ground narrating the scene. Mike would get in the helicopter. He would just drop the rucksack. That was my job at first, but we thought for the betterment of the show, it would be best to do it this way. Because I have a background in high-speed and technical driving, off-road driving, things like that, right? So, and
Joe was saying the same. Joe was saying the same thing. It's like it could have been me in there. Like it was like this. Yeah. It was just random that you guys were on the ground.
Yeah. So, so what happened? I go down there. I do what I can do. I find Mike. He's unconscious. He's barely breathing. He's a mess. He's alive, but he's a mess. And this is a really eerie story because I'd already found the pilot earlier. He had been decapitated. And so I moved on, looked around, found Mike laying there. And if you could just imagine, it's 29 degrees out right now. It's in the desert. There's no illumination, no moonlight. I'm wearing a coal miner's light on my helmet, on my head. It's all I got to see with. I have a thin jacket on. It's very cold because I wasn't expecting to be out there that long. And I'm soaking wet with jet fuel from the knees down because as I was running through the sagebrush, the fuel tank apparently had ruptured when this thing just literally disintegrated. There was nothing bigger than a shoebox left of this helicopter. And so jet fuel had been doused everywhere. As I'm running through, I'm soaked in it. I find Mike, and he's not doing well. And I ended up grabbing him by his torso. He was wearing like a brown fleece jacket, and I had to roll him to his side to clear his airway because he was choking on his blood, teeth, all kinds of stuff. And when I did, man, it's like, one, it felt like I was rolling a bag of potatoes. But two, he was soaking wet in jet fuel. My gloves were soaking wet, jet fuel, blood, whatever. And then, so I'm trying to manage his airway. And I still have a third guy that I'm looking for, the cameraman. I know he's out here somewhere. I don't know where because, Anyways, as I'm sitting there, I'm trying to control Mike. There's no help coming. I don't see anybody coming. I don't hear anybody coming. I'm in the middle of this desert. And I remember yelling out really loud, "I've got two. I'm missing one. I need some help." Those were my words. I said that a couple of times, hoping somebody would hear me and dial in and come to me and help me. And so this is when the weird thing happened. So next thing I know, out of the open desert, I see a woman approaching me at a brisk pace. She walks right past me within arm's reach, easily. Doesn't say a word, doesn't stop, doesn't do anything. Walks behind me. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm trying to hang on to Mike so he don't roll over, and I'm trying to turn around to look, and I can't really see her yet, and I hear her gasp. And she turns around and briskly walks right past me back out into the open desert where she came from.
What?
And I thought, that is some weird shit. So I turned around and looked at what is she gasping about, and I looked back, and there's the cameraman. So I balanced Mike as best I could on his side, and I reassured him, hoping that maybe he could hear me. I said, "Mike, I'll be right back, brother." I said, "I got one more man I got to check on, but I'll be right back. You're going to be okay." So I get up. I run back 15 feet, something like that. Little did I know he's right behind me, and he's laying on his back. He had basically been what's the word I'm looking for? Basically been halved by the fuselage, went up between his legs. And so he was dead, right? So it didn't take me long to figure that out.
Cameraman.
Yeah, so I run back, and I'm still managing Mike, but he's slowly slipping away. And probably within 30 seconds, you know, we're about 5 minutes into this thing right now. He's gone. And then the first medic slides into home base with the aide back, you know, like, do what you got to do, but it's over, you know. So anyways, that's kind of the event, some of the things that transpired. But one of the things, and so when I talk about my coaching, I do a lot of coaching, right? And I talk about stress management and leadership, self-governance and things like that. One of the things that happened was as the sun started coming up, all of a sudden now the highway patrol showing up, the fire department, the FAA, oh my God, man, like 50 cars showed up, right? And they're all getting out, and the fire marshal gets out, he's an older guy, and he walks over to the pilot who I had covered up his torso with something, I can't remember, it was like a white piece of styrofoam or something, because no need to look at a guy laying out his head on him, right? So, and he just loses his shit. He's like, who did this? Who put that? And he's going crazy, man. And then he's screaming, and he's literally crying. He's very hysterical. And what the hell? This is a fire marshal. He's pretty senior, and he's losing his shit out here right in front of everybody. And he's yelling and barking orders. And I finally just looked at him and go, hey, shut the F up. I said, if you can't compose yourself and do your job, get the freak out of here. I said, you're not helping the situation. You're hurting it. Right? And I pretty much had to fire him up to get him to come back to, you know, sanity, and get him back in the right mindset. But you would think a senior fire marshal has seen worse than that.
Yeah.
You know? But anyways, he just really came unhinged. Finally, what happened was, so there's a big investigation, blah, 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 blah. Somebody made a mistake. Well, there wasn't a mistake. They were trying to be kind to his parents and say, hey, he died instantly, which was not true. So I wrote the book. I already had written my book, American Badass. I was almost complete with it, and I thought, you know, this would be a good chapter to start the story with, not because it's a gory story, but I thought there was a lot of things that we could learn from the story about, you know, for example, when I found the pilot, I saw him in the distance, right? I remember it's really dark, and I see him laying what looked like he was face down, head towards me. I run over to him. I grab him by his shoulders, and I roll him over. And when I roll him over, I realized he doesn't have a head. And it caught me by complete surprise, right? And I kind of stood up and gasped. And I was stunned because that's not what I was expecting. And I remember I talked about my OTC instructor, Mad Max, earlier, right? Mad Max, he was really hard, but he did it because he loved us and he wanted us to live, right? And he used to always tell us, don't run the situation. He said, don't let the situation run you. You run the situation, right? Run the situation. Don't let it run you. And then the other thing he'd always tell us, do something, goddammit. Even if it's wrong, just do something, but don't stand there, right? And I remember when I rolled him over, I was kind of like stood up in kind of shock. I remember those words coming across my mind, you know, run the situation. Don't let it run you. You got to continue on, right? Continue mission. Charlie, Mike, you got 2 more guys out here. So that's what helped me compose myself again. And so I went back to work, you know, rather than standing there going, you know, what happened? It was like a nightmare, man. Think about it. It's dark, you know, and it's cold, and it's just, fuck, you know, it's crazy. So I thought I'd open the story, because there are a lot of other lessons learned in that thing, right, that I thought people should know and understand, you know, when it comes to self-leadership, governance, and courage and things like that, you know. So when I wrote the story, I mentioned somebody survived. I didn't mention who. I said, yeah, one guy was alive, you know, blah, 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 but this is what happened. Well, maybe a week later, I'm still in L.A. with my management team, investigation still going on. I get a phone call from his wife, Mike's wife, and she's got me on speakerphone, apparently, with the lawyers, and they start asking all the questions. Who made the decision to change seats, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, you know what? I said, that was a group decision for the betterment of the show. You know, we all had equal authority. We're all co-producers. You know, nothing nefarious going on there, right?
Thank you for watching the video, guys. Please hit that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.